and thank you for joining us in another segment of Veteran Service Veterans with New England Veterans Liberty House. Before I introduce you to my guest, I want to go ahead and echo what we said last show, and that is the initiative that the Lawrence City Councilor Mark LaPlante initiated along with the Veteran Service Officer, is that if you know any veterans out there that are returning home from deployment or their duty station, we're trying to, again, recognize each individual upon redeploying back to the States. And again, we can't do it without you. That's data that we can't really come about. So we really need your help. So if you do know of any veterans that are redeploying back to the States and redeploying back more specifically to the city of Lawrence, I need you to give us a call, please, at 978-258-2331. Or you could go to the Lawrence City Hall website and send either an email to Councilor Mark LaPlante, or you could call him. And you could also, you'll find in the city website as well, you could find the Veteran Service Officer, Jamie Melendez, email address and phone number, so you could contact them as well. So I'm really glad to introduce to you our guest. Today is, our guest is James Patrick O'Donoghue. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been wanting to do this show since you visit us in our office, because you came in through our office one time with a bunch of blueprints and a couple of specs in hand, and it was, again, really interesting to have you there, and the conversation that you started with us in regards to veteran services here in the city of Lawrence. We're going to get into that a little bit further, but I want to go ahead and let our viewers know, because he is a veteran. He served in the Army. He was born in, do you really want me to tell the day that you were born?
No, you don't have to. You don't have to.
November 24th, 1951. He's a resident for most of the 62 years here at the city of Lawrence. He was drafted into the Army in January 28, 1971. And then he was discharged in November 5th of 1971. Am
That's
I right
correct,
so far?
yes.
Out of the 9 months of service, he went 180 days that was required to get your honorable discharge. So you, in fact, did your 180 days active duty and were awarded, obviously, the honorable discharge upon releasing. So good for you. He did basic training in Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Yes.
Wow, how was that?
Fort Dix was a very desolate place. One of the things about Fort Dix at that time was if you went out where maneuvers were taking place,
Right,
practice,
yeah, I was stationed there for a little bit.
all of the trees were dead. And,
Nice.
there was a reason for that, because they used chemicals on the trees.
Yeah, go figure, right?
Yeah, and
then you patrolled right after.
Yes, and years later, I kept saying, I know what you used there, and I was continuously told by the VA that no,
That
Agent
everything was
Orange was
okay.
never used in the United States.
Yeah,
It was only
no.
used overseas.
Yeah, and you're okay. You won't be glowing 20 years from now.
Yeah, and as time went on, I actually had a friend that proved that, they were using
Really?
Agent Orange stateside, and there have been a few cases that have been
Wow.
proven.
I see. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It wasn't
Go
just
figure.
in Vietnam. It
Yeah, I
was-
served in Fort Dix. I mean, I think that was, we went there for about, I think, 30 days
Yeah.
prior to catching a flight over to Iraq. So we stopped there for a good 30 days,
At Dix, they called it a herbicide, I guess. So
Oh, yeah.
that was basically what
Yeah,
they
that
called
was
it.
like kind of like calming it down a little bit. Yeah, this is what it's called, not Agent Orange. Yeah, go
Yeah.
figure. Nevertheless, he was assigned to Headquarters Detachment of the 3rd Brigade, and also worked at details at HQ Detachment 3rd Brigade, which was normally included direct care. It provided direct care
Yeah.
to soldiers returning back from Vietnam. Is that
Yes.
what you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, a lot of them had PTSD, and,
Sure.
and they were going through even an adjustment period inside the Army
Right.
of just being back.
Reacclimating back
Into-
to
yeah.
garrison. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
out of a
Combat zone.
environment, and no, it was difficult for them. I can remember one time, someone was having a barbecue outside,
Right.
and something happened and the barbecue caught on fire. And these guys were in the day room, and they saw the flash of fire, and they started freaking out
Wow.
on me. And I had to calm them down, you know.
Sure. I mean, but if
I mean, I did the best I could. Nobody's.
sure,
I don't think
sure.
anyone's trained to really know
yeah,
exactly
how
what
are you
to
going
do.
to diffuse that type of situation? You
Yeah,
know, when
but
it
they
arises?
were hitting the deck. I mean, they just went for the floor, and they're screaming and
Wow.
crying and everything. It was a terrible scene, you know.
Yeah, it's that sight to see. But
Yeah.
you know what? It happens more often than what's really said. I mean, I think
Yeah.
lately now the media has been putting a lot of coverage on it, and I think that the VA itself and other agencies that provide services to veterans are coming out with it, like more than they did back in your era.
Yeah.
You know, and hopefully they're trying to do something about that. But I know that back then in your era, it wasn't really. What word am I looking for? That type of behavior was like second nature, and it was okay. Oh, don't worry about it. You see a little bit of fire, you drop to the ground, you get back up, and you move on, and you continue marching on, right? But knowing now, right, that was so
Yeah.
much more.
Yeah,
you know,
it was.
so much more.
I mean, the trauma that they went through
Yeah.
was such that some of them just couldn't get back up. Honestly, their legs started to go into, I don't know how to describe it, but they
Oh,
had
you
like
lose
restless
feelings. Yeah.
type legs, and
Yeah.
they couldn't. They had problems sleeping. They had problems getting up. But one of the things that bothers me though is that okay, so people have these experiences and they have these problems, but then they come back into the civilian environment and they get discriminated against.
And it happened
know,
a lot in the
And
Vietnam
it's happened
era.
a lot before, and
Yeah.
I'm concerned that it's happening again.
You know, I do see that. I don't see it as much as it did in your era. Again, I
Yeah.
have to say, Vietnam era. A lot of the Vietnam veterans, you know, unfortunately, when they got home, they weren't praised for what they did. As a matter of fact, they got attacked. A lot of them got attacked for what
Yes,
they
they
did. But you're right. There's a lot of individual veterans that are coming back that are falling through the cracks, and I think that's one of the main reasons that I decided to establish New England Veterans Liberty House, because I was one of those individuals that fell through that crack. And when you're telling somebody that this is what's happening to me, and this is what's that sweats and the night sweats and the nightmares that you're having. At the beginning, you have a lot of people that will brush it off. You know, be like, well, here, take this med and come and see me in the morning, or something like that. You know, but you're right. I am concerned that a lot of well, let's go back here a little bit. I mean, look at in the media, what's all this that's coming out about the Veterans Administration. So your reasons are validated. You
Yeah.
know, look how many individuals are waiting 3, 4, 5 months to be seen. Look how many individuals are losing their lives just waiting for these appointments. So yeah, I definitely believe that is still
Yeah.
going on.
And sometimes there are people out there that don't even believe that PTSD is a real thing.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
they think that, oh, this is somebody's looking for us to support them the rest of their life,
Sure.
kind of thing.
And that angers me. That really
that's
angers
a
me.
whole
when it's like that.
other thing that
Yeah.
it does.
You don't have to. PTSD comes in many forms, and it doesn't surface right away. And I think like last year, and I'm going to end up talking to Jeannie again, because we had a topic, we had a show, and it covered PTSD, and unfortunately we didn't have enough time. But we definitely need to do another one, because it encompasses a wide range of symptoms, right? And you might not, again, surface right away. It could take 2, 3, 4 years. But when you start making light of it, especially around me, then there's a problem. And
Yeah.
there's going to be a problem. Because again, just because you're not, excuse me, just because you're not in the front lines of the combat zone, doesn't mean that you won't come back home with some form of PTSD. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens in any war, especially in a foreign country. If you're there long enough, something that's bound to not be right, and you're bringing that stuff back. So yeah, you are right. I haven't come across anyone yet that has made light of the issues, but I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I have, and I experienced my own. I had my own experiences coming out of the service during the Vietnam era.
Yeah.
And first, I saw the old job that I had advertised in the newspaper.
When you got back?
Yes, when I got back, so I went
Oh,
to the
good.
company, and I asked for my job back.
Really?
Yes, and
How did that go?
I
When the
wasn't-
look in your face just
I,
says it
I,
all.
I wasn't rehired. I thought I was going to be automatically rehired. I had
Sure,
an
a
honorable
GI coming
discharge.
back home.
Yeah.
You know, the honorable discharge.
and
you know.
and so then that was one disappointment, and I felt like I was wronged. But then I went to a company in North Andover to apply for a job, and they had a government contract. You know, with that, they're supposed to hire veterans.
Sure, there's a certain percentage that
And-
that's allocated aside to hire veterans. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they had a petition. I don't know how many feet high it was, but it didn't go all the way to the ceiling. And the personnel people were behind it, having
Petition was for what?
a partition.
partition.
Yeah, partition.
Excuse me.
And behind, so they're talking behind there, and they're talking about me, and they're saying,
Are they really?
well, how do we know this guy isn't on drugs or something? Or,
Go figure.
I mean, yeah.
And this is how many weeks or days or months upon returning
Oh, this
to?
was within the first 6 months this happened.
Really?
And, you know, I saw, and I'm like, I didn't know what to do.
Sure.
I was heartbroken.
You heard it was
because-
actually talking about you, so.
Yeah, and they're talking about me, and I never did drugs in my life, you know, and
Wow.
I never.
So you would judge the minute you stepped indoors just because you wore the uniform.
Yeah, and so I saw that discrimination, and sometimes I'd talk with veterans on the street. You know, you'd see them, and I mean on the street like they're sleeping in doorways, and they just woke up,
Sure.
walking through Boston, and you know, you talk with them because
It's heartbreaking.
and it helps, you know, to them to have someone to talk with them
You-
that just doesn't walk by them.
Yeah. Well, we speak the same language.
Yeah.
You know, any way you slice it, whether you're
Yeah.
a Korean War veteran or an Afghanistan veteran,
Yeah.
when you cross another veteran's path, you guys, we understand each other. We speak the same language, and so it's really nice of you to take your time, really, and give them the time to talk to them.
yeah,
But
they-
talk to me a little bit about. Continue talking about the that petition when they were talking about you, and then what happened next after that.
I just remember coming out and being told, well, there are no positions available. They've all been filled, and you know, there was still people there to be interviewed
Really?
that were waiting in line, and you know, it was a newly advertised job, and I
Yeah.
just felt that it was all wrong. I knew that I was discriminated against. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I don't believe there was an MCAD back then.
No.
But you know, and then like one of the things I found in talking with like these other veterans and that was that nobody was giving them a chance
Yeah. Back then
at
they weren't.
anything,
They weren't.
you know. And it was awful. And finally, I was like, get a job here, get a job there. I did what I could. You know, construction work, whatever that I was trained in, by the way.
Yeah, whatever paid the bills at that time. You know,
Yeah, and
you weren't picky.
but I had people cheat me out of money left and right. You know, when you do things
Go
for them,
figure.
and so you get abused. You're kind of like this abused class, you know, as a veteran sometimes.
Yeah.
Back then, a Vietnam era veteran, and I can remember the one thing that changed everything for me was when I was able to get back to school. And I went to a tech school.
Yeah.
I went to a technical school, and I was, I can brag, I can say I was the top student
Good for
in
you.
my class. And
Good for you. You wanted it.
yeah, it was a drafting and design technology course, which included engineering, mathematics, and everything. And I had a,
Good figure.
you know,
Statistics and all that other good
yeah,
stuff.
and I was, you know, I really put myself into it, and I
Good.
did really well. And
So would you say that would be that there was a turning point around to?
yeah, because that gave me an opportunity where being the top in the school also helped a lot more. Because then when I went to, well, they would send recruiters to the school. They were looking for people to fill positions. There was these jobs
Now
were
these
in
are
demand.
Army recruiters, or is
No,
that
no, these are
civilian recruiters?
Civilian recruiters.
Okay, because
They're
it is ironic
corporations.
that you say that.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
okay, this guy went back to
Corporate-
school now.
corporations.
So now they want him. Now he has a
Yeah,
degree. We want him
No,
again.
no,
Yeah.
these type of recruiters.
Civilian
for-
recruiters.
Yeah, for
for different
companies.
corporate companies and yeah.
Yeah, and so I went. I interviewed with this company out off of Route 3, and actually, if they wanted me to work for them, they offered me the job, and I'd have to go to Paris, France.
Okay, that's not
And-
too bad.
Well, I didn't.
That's at the time you didn't know, right? That's not too bad. Where do I
know,
sign?
but it wasn't the job that I wanted.
You gotcha.
The
What
job.
was it? What was the
I really wanted to-
description of the job? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was actually designing equipment rooms for telephone equipment.
Nice. Okay.
Europe was still, even in the early 80s, Europe, some countries didn't have much in telephone service.
Right, right,
You know, and
right.
they were expanding quite broadly. So I
So
turned.
you turn that down.
I turned that down, and I got a job at Raymond Gary Vanderweil Engineers.
Okay, that's a big
and
name.
First, I was in the HVAC department. They sent me to school to
For engineering?
Yeah, to Carrier College to learn the design part of HVAC, and pretty much it was the easiest thing to pass. You know.
Well,
It
for
was-
you.
Well, no, for everybody. I think it was.
Okay,
They
okay.
made it easy.
Did they?
Yeah,
Good.
they made it easy. Maybe they did have good teachers,
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
instructors,
Well, yeah. That's a
professors,
plus.
and
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
but I left that, and then I got moved into the plumbing department, and I can remember working with Charles Stein, this project engineer for Copley Place.
So it sounds to me. It sounds
Yeah.
to me like you were getting all these degrees and all this training in the trade field, the HVAC, plumbing.
Yeah, and I had worked as a carpenter. I went to the vocational school
Yeah.
and graduated from carpentry and millwork.
What vocational school again was
Greater
it?
Lawrence Regional, now it's the Greater Lawrence Tech.
Greater Lawrence Tech.
Nicholas
Yeah,
School.
I'm a Reggie.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we gave it the name Reggie's too.
Yeah.
Back
Is
then,
that you? Okay.
'cause of
Yeah, I'm a
Reggie.
Reggie. I
Yeah.
graduated many
Yeah,
years
we
ago.
picked.
but-
I picked the orange and black colors too.
Did you really? So that was you? So we have you to blame for that. We like orange and black. Where did they come up with this?
It
But
was October.
At the end,
It
yeah,
was October when we had
Okay,
to.
gotcha.
The first year of the school, yeah, they asked us.
Yeah, so how did that go? You had a part, or was it a round table of students and said,
Yeah.
okay, come up with the school colors, and
Yeah.
then you just
orange
look at
and
the
black,
pumpkin and
then,
look at
you
here
know
go.
something. Everybody liked the idea pretty much.
Did it? Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, that was like forward
Yeah.
10 years forward
Yeah,
after
we
that.
were,
yeah.
some of us. Were
Well, now they're
trying-
good.
Yeah.
Now it's good to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you go. I mean, you go anywhere and you see a black and orange sweater, you know exactly where.
I wish
where
I
they
didn't
come
pick
from.
orange and
Yeah,
black,
well,
but I did.
Too late now, buddy.
Yeah.
Too late now. Listen, before you go there, I really want to touch on something here that when you sent it to me, I was just mind boggled. I was blown away with some of the stuff that you sent to me during your enlistment process. And I'm sorry that maybe I should have brought this up earlier before
Yeah,
we
that's
got into
all
it.
right.
But again, as you mentioned, you were drafted actually in December 24th, Christmas Eve
Yes.
day at 5 o'clock p.m. at 5 p.m.
Yes.
So what were you thinking? Like, it's Christmas Eve, for crying out loud.
I received
What
the
are you doing?
telegram from greetings from the President of the United States,
Sure.
Richard M. Nixon,
Yeah,
a very famous president.
yeah,
You know,
sure. Very famous.
and
One of the things that says, it says,
it ruined my Christmas.
yeah, most definitely. And it stated that your notice. This is funny because it said that your notice told you to be at the Lawrence train station on January 28th, 1971.
That's right.
What were you thinking? What was it
And
going
I
through
think
your
it was.
mind?
I think it was about 6 a.m. or something that I had to be there. Well, what was going through my mind was,
You're asked to go to the Lawrence train station.
well,
I mean-
I never thought I was going to get drafted.
Well, surprise,
Okay.
surprise.
And and if I was, I didn't expect the fact that I had just turned 19 in November, that I was going to be grabbed that
Uncle
quick.
Sam,
And you know,
they take them young.
I had a lot on my mind.
I'm sure you did.
Because if you knew the background on this, I had bought a house in South Lawrence when I was 17 years old, and it had to be in my parents' names.
Really?
So
Good for you.
because it wasn't, I had bought it because I had studied carpentry and that, and this was a house that someone lived in, and it was I wouldn't call it abandoned, but they were in the hospital for many years, and it was a widow, and she had no living relatives in the United States. So I bought this estate,
Oh,
and I was
just doing a
starting.
little bit of rehab work.
I was rehabbing the house, and I didn't have it done. and there was no way I was going to have it done for
No.
January 28th.
Yeah, it was not going to happen. Yeah.
So anyway, my parents, it was in their name, and because it was in their name, I couldn't freeze it like guys that had auto loans and things like that.
Yeah, it's
you know?
under the Sailors and Soldier Act.
Yeah, so I had no protection under anything. So my
Did
parents.
you end up losing the house?
No,
You
my
gave it to your parents.
My
excuse me.
parents helped.
Okay, good.
They kept the payments
able
up
to keep
because I would have had $20 in my pocket for the month if I paid the mortgage out of what the military paid me.
Sure. Which, as a matter of fact, they don't pay as much either nowadays. So just to, and then something happened here too that it stated that you were taken to Boston,
Yes.
right? And then transferred onto a bus to go to the South Boston U.S. Army base.
Yes.
And I'm gonna assume that's Boston MEPS, which I think they call Boston MEPS now.
I don't know what they call it now.
I think they do. It's an area where all Marines, soldiers, sailors, airmen go and congregate, and then they'll go off to their separate branches, and they'll do the physical examinations, and then do the swear-in and all that other good stuff. So, but then it states here, and this gets me that you failed the physical fitness part or the induction
Yeah, I
physical
failed
part,
it.
but yet they put you on a bus to Fort Dix, New Jersey on January 29th. What was that about? Was it to go say, okay, you're done, we're going to give you a waiver, now you got to go train? Even though the physical part, because I mean, that happened to
Yeah.
me as well, just to give you a heads up. I failed
Well-
a test in Boston MEPS, and then they gave me a waiver right there and then. They're like, oh, no problem, we're going to sign this,
Yeah.
and you're good to go, and put me on the bus, and next thing you know, I was in South Carolina. So I just talk to me a little bit about that, because there's like, right after that happened, you, again, on January 29th, you were put on the bus. You were sent to Fort Dix, and well, no place. Then when you got there, actually, you had nowhere to sleep. What was that all about? Where would you guys arrive?
we're trying
you
to
didn't have a cantonment area for you guys.
We had to wait for other people to get up for the day, and then they only gave us maybe an hour's sleep. Okay, before they put us in line and started getting
doing
our-
your shots
the
and
clothing and everything and all of that.
So no cots. There was no cots in there when you arrived, at all.
No cots.
No extra cots.
No cot to sleep on whatsoever. There was just, we were there on the
concrete floor.
bus, on the bus that we rode down and going this and like that, you know. Almost sleeping on top of each other. It was awful.
Then you stated at sometime around the 1st of February, you were supposed to be transferred to Fort Knox, or Kentucky, from Fort Knox, Fort Knox, Kentucky, for basic training.
Yes.
You got there. I remember myself when I went to boot camp. You go through this parade of nurses and doctors and left and the right side of you, and it's like shots after shots after shots. Don't know what you're getting, but you have to go through that line. And here states that you got an influenza vaccine that, well, first of all, you can never prove that that's what it was, but you had a really bad reaction. That, I mean, you almost died off of that.
I did. I was standing in line to board the bus for Fort Knox, Kentucky,
Yeah.
and I passed out. And all I know is that I woke up in the hospital. That's where, I don't remember passing out, of course, but I remember waking up in the hospital. And it's funny because I saw the nurse and she was Asian. And I didn't know where I was. I said,
You thought you were in
"Was
Vietnam?
Did something happen to me that I missed?
I was reading that. You said that you passed out, went to the hospital, and when you came to, you opened your eyes and you seen this Asian lady, so you thought you were in Vietnam. So, which is a good assumption, because obviously you're going to Fort Dix for training, and you're getting inoculated, you're getting all these shots, and after that you're gonna go train, and then you're shipping out, plain and simple.
Yeah.
So, in your case, you're like me. They bypassed the training and they're just sending me straight to Vietnam.
And it only got worse after that.
Yeah, well, it goes on, and that's why I have to touch on this, because first of all, to me, I find this. Well, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, because it happens more often than what we think. But I was shocked. Continue reading, and I was shocked of what you wrote, and the lack the lack of responsibility from the Army's part was just mind-boggling. I just couldn't understand how, especially today, where when I was in the military, we hold formations, 4 or 5 times a day, and it's not because we want to look at guys lining up all the time. It's because part of it is accountability, right? So it just shocks me that you really went through all this. So and also now further, it's a few days later, you were released against regulations on Sunday, February 7th, 1971. Tell me about that. What was that about?
Well, at that time there was some regulation against releasing on a Sunday because of the fact that they didn't have all the staff there to do all the proper paperwork and processing. So my being released on a Sunday, they didn't give me anything to tell me where to go. I was
They
supposed
gave
to
you
get some kind of...
a closeout packet. Something.
Yes,
Here you go.
yeah.
Here's your next step.
So I went to the desk inside the hospital and I says, now where am I supposed to go?
So that and
And they said, well, back to wherever you were, back to your unit. I says, I don't know where I was. I don't know where I was.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah, and
So
there's no documentation of where they picked you up at the time.
all I know is that I was out there, and next
Well,
thing I
you
know,
passed out and you ended up in a hospital, and you would think that they'd be like, okay, we picked you up from here, from this unit, or not a unit, but this is the phase you were in. There's 5 phases. He's in phase 1. You know what I mean?
Now I was fortunate enough to have that they kept my clothing that I had been wearing when I went into the hospital,
Okay.
and I had money in my pockets, and no one stole the money.
Wow, that's good.
Because, believe it or not, just before I went in, all these relatives came over and gave me a lot of money. Okay,
Yeah, make
and
sure you
so
were
I
okay.
had over $1,000 in my duffel bag.
That's a lot of money. Back
Okay,
then. A lot
yes,
of money.
over $1,000 in my duffel bag, and I don't know how much I had in my pocket. Quite a lot, but not that much.
Well, but I mean, back then, $1,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, it was
is a lot of money.
heck of a lot of money
Yeah,
back
absolutely.
in that time.
Yeah, especially in the military.
1971. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened to my clothing or anything because probably the duffel bag went on the bus somewhere.
With you, without you, excuse
Without me, and went to
Without
Fort
you.
Knox.
Yeah.
And from there, who knows where it went.
Well, again, I'm going to keep going, and I'm sure that some viewers probably will relate to this story because I'm sure that it's happened not just to you. I'm sure it's happened to many. And it says that I was released from the hospital. I had only entered service on January 28th. I recognized the place. I guess when you get out, recognized the place. Went to the office staff, but because it was a Sunday, I guess they were having early happy hour.
Yes.
Yeah. So they were all kind of under the influence of alcohol. And then what? I mean, what?
And nobody would help me with anything. They just laughed at me and said, "Get out of here," basically. And
don't bother me. I'm drinking.
Yeah.
I'm drinking.
And no one was helping me with anything. And I called home. I had
like any other teenager would.
Yeah, there was a payphone there, and I called home. Now, my parents had come down to visit me while I was in the hospital, and then they went back home. And so then there I am. It's freezing cold out. It's February.
Yeah.
Temperatures are dropping. I had no winter
coat.
coat.
Let me just say this. Yeah, it mentioned here, and again, it was sad, that you were out there during that time. No protection from the elements, and it was quite shocking that everybody was just, thinking about, their draft beer versus giving you someplace warm to stay.
I mean,
sorry you had to go through that, really.
Hey, some people were angry later on because they got in trouble for what they did, their response for not helping. The doctor, even in the hospital, was in trouble for letting me out.
This is
with no.
Yeah. Well, somebody had to be held accountable. You know what I mean? You just don't do that to. I think, especially you got drafted, but nonetheless.
So I did call home, and my parents said, "Well, why don't you come home?" And I thought, "What?" But the more I thought about it,
you were under orders.
The more I thought
how are you
about
going
it,
to get on a bus and go home while you were under orders? So you were an active military member.
Yeah.
Back then. So if you would have gone home without the proper paperwork, you would have been absent without leave.
I should have been absent without leave. And now the guy that showed me where the reception station was just somebody hanging around outside the hospital.
Yeah.
And he says, I'll show you where the bus station is. And he showed me where the bus station was. And,
You got on the bus. See you
I
later.
bought tickets. And
And
I
came
bought
back
the
home.
tickets, and I went through the Port Authority bus station in New York. That's a whole different.
Now, were you in uniform back then?
Yes, I
uniform.
was.
Go figure. Go figure. Well, it could have been maybe that much easier to get
I
through.
was in my fatigues, and I had no winter coat. You'd think that somebody would think that there was something wrong.
Sure, absolutely.
And I
especially
expected-
you were private. You were
Yes.
private then.
Yeah.
So I mean, you would think that the higher echelon, there's got to be some sergeants or
Yeah.
corporals or staff sergeants around the area would
Yeah.
say that hey, it's a red flag seeing a private right
Yeah.
outside the area in the conditions that you were in. And I'm surprised that no non-commissioned officer stood up and
Yeah.
took you under their wing and helped
Nothing
you out.
happened. So only got worse because I did go home, and then I'm at home, and we keep calling different people in the military, my dad and I.
Well,
And-
let me stop you there real quick because this was good. So while you were at home, you said, while home, my dad tried to contact the Army to find out where I was supposed to be. Now, this is your dad calling, right? 3 weeks later, he contacted the U.S. Senator Ted Kennedy's office because
That's right.
apparently they weren't getting back to him, right?
No.
So at this point, they're like, okay, no one's calling me back. My son apparently is an active duty member of the military, but yet he's home.
And they're not telling me
They're
that
not
he's
telling him.
missing either.
They contacted the officials at Fort Dix
Yeah.
that told your parents that you were at Fort Knox,
Yes.
but your parents were on the phone and you were right next to them,
Yes.
right? But they were telling your parents. What did your parents at that time like? No, son, you're not going back to the military. You're staying here.
My-
This is not what it was.
My mother was. She was well, just stay and etc. But my dad and I, we were working to get me back in to just
Yeah,
get
see
me to
here.
the right place.
Sure, but let me also say that Fort Knox officials also told the the Kennedy staff,
Yes.
not just your parents,
Yes.
but they told the Kennedy staff that you were at Fort Dix. Now, how did that go with the Kennedy staff knowing 100% exactly where you were at? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, one of the really nice things about it was that somewhere along the way, Ted himself actually got involved.
Really?
Yeah. And so when I finally got back after a series of other events happened that were crazy, when I got reissued clothing and everything, I was taken through the line and somebody says to me, "Who do you know?" Because it was like I was given this priority status.
Yeah. Class A
And,
treatment
yeah,
after that.
it was.
But it's just to me it's crazy. The army that's supposed to be one of the logistics superpowers, right? I think that well now there's a lot of logistics in the military that's on point, and to miss not knowing that. Well, again, maybe during that era was the record keeping obviously wasn't that up to par, but they had no idea at all that you were missing.
Yeah, and Kennedy's staff conducted it somewhat like an investigation almost, because
Really?
they got into the details in that, and pretty much proved my side of the story, and so they were very, very helpful in that.
And returning you back without facing any charges or whatnot.
Exactly,
Which
yeah.
let me just say that's important
Yeah,
because
and I could have
you
been.
could have been facing uniform code of military justice.
Sure, yeah.
Easily. Maybe not at court martial level, but definitely UCMJ.
And you would think that it would have happened that way, but it,
Yeah. No, but too many people dropped the ball, though.
Yeah.
James. Too
Yeah.
many people dropped the ball. And I guarantee you this was something they were like, no, let's take care of this now because we don't want it spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
And then people would have lost their rank. Plain and
Yeah.
simple. I think people would have been losing their ranks, and the commissioned officers were definitely asked to resign, you know. So of course it was into their best interest
Yeah.
not to really escalate this further. But you mentioned here then the Kennedy office arranged for me to be reinducted at Fort Devens,
Devens, yes.
here. So you initially was going to go to Fort Dix. That's where you initially went. But now this time around, they
I went
brought you here to Fort Devens.
Fort Devens first to be reinducted and given my orders. And my orders then were to return to Fort Dix. I thought that's what my orders were. That's what they were supposed to
Okay, hold
do.
up. Is there more to come here now?
But
What happened?
They did.
I just
they
feel the
did-
more you talk about it, the more I feel bad.
Well, I got down to Fort Dix. I stepped out of the bus, and I asked, okay,
so,
where,
okay, so
where
did
do I
you go to
now?
Fort Devens though, and then they put you on a
Yeah.
bus from Fort Devens to?
To Fort Dix, yes.
And back then, Fort Devens wasn't Fort Devens active duty base?
Yes.
It
and,
was.
And they
Okay.
had to process paperwork and give me my orders, okay, as to where to go when I got to Fort Dix. So I got down to Fort Dix, and I got off the bus at the station, and then I asked, well, where do I go now? And they said, show the cabbie over there, he'll know where to take you.
Oh no.
So the cab driver takes me
No.
out to McGuire Air Force Base. And I didn't know where I was. I saw an airfield there and that. And then he's letting me out, and there's other guys there, and they said, well, they look at my orders, and they say, over here, and they walk me over to this place. And I look at the sign, and they said, you got to get on the plane. And I said, what? I looked at the sign, and it said, Overseas Replacement Station.
Oh.
So I was panicking. I'm like, overseas? How can I be going overseas
yeah, well, you
when-
haven't even done boot camp.
when I haven't been through basic training, and what am I doing going overseas? And it was just another embarrassment for the military because at Fort,
Go figure.
what happened at Fort Devens was some guy named Donahue,
Oh.
without the O
Oh,
apostrophe
Donahue.
in
And
front
they
of his
thought they gave you the wrong
They gave
orders.
me his orders, and he was supposed to go to Germany, but
You know,
I had no idea.
Well, let me commend you, I think, first of all.
I thought they
for-
were sending me to Vietnam.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if I would have seen
I
that
figured
where it says,
because I caused all this trouble for people, that they were trying to get even with me now.
no, but I mean, I would have thought the same thing, you know, overseas
Yeah.
replacement station. You know, I got to commend you though, because during all those trials and tribulations that you went through, you still wanted to continue as a military member, an active military member. So, I mean, it took a lot for. Listen, if it would have been me, I would have been like, yeah, get me out of here. I'm done. Discharge me. Give me something. I don't care what it is, but I'm not getting on that plane and I'm not wearing this uniform again. You tried. You did everything in your power to get up there, get to the proper duty station, finish your time off honorably, and they were just making this task impossible for you to do or accomplish. I gotta tell you that right now. I gotta shake your hand for dealing with all that and moving forward with it, because listen, not too many people would gone through all that you went through, and then and still continue marching forward to serve your country. So that speaks volumes of the kind of young man that you were.
Yeah, well, and you know, we could get into the politics and all that, and I wasn't excited the thrill of, you know, that there was seemed to be no mission in Vietnam
Yeah.
for the troops and that. But I was willing to go through the process of the military, you know,
Yeah.
just because I was there,
Sure.
and
We were. We wanted to serve, and you wanted to serve, and see you later. That's it. You know, make it simple. Don't make it that difficult. But
Yeah.
listen, I gotta move on to another section here. But again, my hats off to you, though. Seriously, James, for going through all that and sticking it out, and you still got an honorable
So-
discharge out of it. So thank you for your service. Again.
so anyway,
Thank you.
I got clubbed, and you know, because I was refusing to get on
To get on the plane?
The MPs were sent out to grab me, and they threw me.
Oh, really? Because you wasn't gonna get on that overseas plane.
No, I wasn't getting on that.
Smart move.
They threw me in the brig overnight, and I didn't find out till much later when through somebody, probably Kennedy's office and my
Yeah.
dad, that I was supposed to go to Germany with those orders.
Oh, that was
So I would
funny
have
though.
gone if I had known that it
Yeah,
was.
it was gonna go land in Germany.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
you
would have
thought,
I would
and
have
you
let
thought
them.
you were going
I
to
would have let
Vietnam.
them
We're like, why am I going to Vietnam?
I would have let them.
Yeah,
send
but
me there.
again, it goes back
Yeah.
to, you're private. You're
Yeah,
private.
I know.
What do you know? You know what I mean? It's
Nothing.
like, yeah, of course. You know, I
Yeah.
would have done the same thing.
So then I find myself
Good for
sleeping
you.
in a cell overnight, and I was, oh gosh, you know,
It's horrible.
yeah.
How
But
much
I-
time did you do after you landed in the brig? How much time did you do before you got honorably discharged?
Oh, it was what, almost 9 months,
Good.
8 months, something.
So
like
you
that.
spent a couple days in the brig and then
I
went
didn't
on.
even go. It was the next day I got out.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. The next
Where'd
day.
you go after that?
After that, I stayed at Dick's.
So did you do your 9 months in Dix?
My whole time was in Dick's after that, and I was after I finished basic training, I went to headquarters detachment of the 3rd Brigade,
Yeah, I just see
and
that. And that was the remaining of your time there.
yeah, that was like a country club assignment
Yeah.
for the military. I
Well,
would say.
Ted. So listen,
Yeah.
I don't know how much time we really have, so I want to get into. I also want to let the viewers know that you're also a member of the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's and also it's a five-member panel.
Yes.
And 4 members are appointed by the mayor, and then 1 member is appointed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Correct?
That's correct.
Good.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit of what your role is, or what the role of LRA is. I have a couple questions here, but if you could briefly explain to me what the role of the LRA is here in the city of Lawrence, I'd appreciate it.
Well, the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority can do certain things which the city of Lawrence could also possibly do, but we have powers to act and to take action and to apply for grant monies, even when the city isn't directly
Involved.
so much. But there's always some involvement.
Sure.
There-
Sure. I
there's-
think that any type of grants that you
yeah,
receive
and you
with the
want
city-
to work mutually with the city on different things.
So, but let me so
Yeah.
I could understand that what the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority is. I mean, obviously it's appointed by the mayor, but any decision making that comes from the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority comes within the 5-member panel.
That's
But
right.
then does it have to be approved by the governing body, the council members, and then ultimately the mayor, or no?
Certain things do, yes, certain things do, and it ends up that I would say pretty much everything does at some point.
to
yeah,
the
because
councilors.
the redevelopment authority on its own to try to do projects today in the environment we're in politically and that, and I don't mean in the city politically, I mean
In general.
it's just in general, whether it's
Yeah.
statewide, nationwide, and that it's much more cooperative that you have to work.
Mhm.
At one time, the LRA could basically just push people out by eminent domain, and
That-
they used to
Yeah, let me
bring the
a-
wrecking ball in. The
Let me ask a
bulldozers
question about that, because it states that and some of the authorities that the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority has is, one is establish rehabilitation and design standards. Talk to me, explain that.
Yes, on rehabilitation of existing buildings, we can develop the design standards. We can also say, okay, here's an area over here. What we would like is this particular area to be, let's say, a more contemporary in design or something.
Okay.
And it starts to get into the zoning in that. We can take an area and work on
Designated as.
for high rise.
Yeah, and if your viewers are a little bit probably lost because
Yeah.
we went into your military career and what the services that you provided to this country to now the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because James came to our office and they had a few blueprints and a couple of specs about some of the ideas that you have here for veterans here in the city of Lawrence. And I think that was when I first put eyes on it. I was as a combat veteran and also as a nonprofit, I was extremely happy to see that somebody was taking more initiative to try to help our veterans. And let me just say that before I get 1,000 calls, the mayor of the city of Lawrence, Mayor Dan Revert's been really, really good to us. Council members have been really good to NEVLH as well. So that's one of the reasons I'm asking questions of Mr. James, because Mr. James, we're going to get a little bit into some of the ideas that he brought into our office. I'm going to just speak briefly about that. But then it states, assemble and dispose of land, including the taking of real estate through eminent domain. That's obviously one of your authorities as well. I mean, talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, eminent domain is where you can go in and the prices are set according to the appraisals and that, and so somebody has to actually sell you their property even though they don't want to sell it.
Does that happen often?
It has happened in the past. It happened in this area big time when 495 was being constructed.
Oh, that's right.
They took a lot of
Sure.
homes in North Andover.
Wow.
A lot of North Andover homes. And
How about this one here that I've been looking at? The relocate businesses and residents occupying property in urban renewal areas. Explain that to me a little bit, please.
well, say it again.
Relocate businesses and residents occupying property in urban renewal areas.
Well, you don't want to lose businesses.
Sure.
You want
absolutely.
to keep them in the city if you can. And so when you want to redevelop an area, then you need to
gotta put 'em somewhere.
try to work with them,
Yeah.
help them to get started in another location, help them to work on
That's good.
some affordable lease agreement for their business.
Sure.
Give
Because like
them-
anything
give
else,
them
you want
some
to keep the
tax-
business here in the
and
city of
some-
Lawrence.
sometimes
a tax incentive
You
goes
may
a
have
long
to
way.
do that in some
Sure.
cases
And
to help them out.
have you guys ever had that happen with other businesses that you have to relocate within the city of Lawrence?
Well, I'm new on the board. The board is all entirely new, but in the past, redevelopment
How long is the
authorities
term, by
have
the
done
way?
that.
Anywhere from 1 to 5 years? Or
1 to
something like
5 years. While the council voted on 5 years for me, I believe my term runs out in 2 because I'm serving the remainder of another person's term,
that? Gotcha.
which
And
is
then your name will be, again, selected, will be put up for selection?
it's up to the mayor whether
Whether
he
it
whether he
extends
wants to or not.
the term or not?
Yeah, so I
Gotcha.
better do a good job.
I think you better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I
yeah.
want- if I
And so
want to
far
be
you are.
reappointed.
So far you are. So you definitely got a good grade for that
Yeah.
because you are doing a lot. You are. There's a lot of stuff, and I'm going to go to this real quick so we can get into that.
Okay.
That what you want to do with the veterans here. And then it says demolish and or rehabilitate substandard structures, which you have the authority if a structure or slumlord may not be keeping up with a property. You have the authority to say, okay, now is that to rehabilitate that structure? Does that money come out of the LRA funds, or is that funds that you will get through other grants here in the city of Lawrence?
Well, we have a very limited amount of money
That's
right
what I
now.
was gonna say.
We can go for more money. We can apply
Now,
for
through
grants.
the city, through
We
the
can-
city, or is that state, federal side?
We can go state and federal.
Federal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you leave the local
Yeah, and-
municipalities
yeah,
alone because they
and-
don't really have a big budget anyway.
And whatever we do doesn't limit the city.
Right.
The city is limited, though, on what it can apply for and how much it can apply for, because there are so many cities and towns out there trying to
And
get
I
monies.
need the
But
same
the
thing.
redevelopment authorities have,
It's a small cookie
Much-
jar, and there's
yeah.
a lot of hands in it.
yeah.
So definitely, I see it. Participate in real estate development and commercial I just got tongue twisted. Commercial revitalizing. So what is that about?
Well, that's where you could actually take a block, if there was a block on Essex Street that was empty commercial space or something, and it was decrepit in some way or blighted, you could go in there as the LRA and actually do the project, get an architect, on board and
Do the
redesign, et cetera, show
And
what.
then it'll be rented out for businesses or any type
Yeah,
of-
we can actually speculate.
or
We
can you allocate that once you decide to take that property over and revitalize it and design it a certain way? Can you design it a certain way for certain agencies, or is it can you make it specific for businesses? I mean, how does that work?
Well, we have the ability to do either.
Either or.
Um, as an agency, though, that wants to survive, we have to do it in a way that
Economic,
that
that's-
we
I
don't
mean,
put
that's-
ourselves out of business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and look
Yeah.
at the economics, of it.
Yeah.
So, this is one: issue bonds, borrow money,
Mhm.
invest funds. Obviously, the obvious: receive grants. Talk about the issue bonds, borrow money. Issue bonds first, and then I'll.
Well, issue bonds first. For instance, the first site that I proposed to build on was this Habitat for Heroes project, which
Yep,
would
you
be
mentioned that.
Habitat
Please
for
talk about that.
Humanity, along with building houses for veterans.
veterans.
Okay, specifically for veterans, and a subdivision.
Yeah.
And in this case, the land is owned by the city of Lawrence. So the LRA doesn't own the land. One thing about the LRA is it can take property by eminent domain, but it can't take city-owned property by eminent domain.
So it could take
So if the city,
civilians
yeah, so if the city,
property, but you can't go after. So that doesn't
yeah,
make any
yeah. So if we want to, we have to work with the city if the city owns, or the city works with us.
So-
In the case of the first subdivision that I proposed, the city owns that land.
Yeah, they were talking about the subdivision that he's proposing. Is there's about 15 homes that could go into that subdivision? if I'm not mistaken?
That's what I believe can go
So,
in there.
what he's talking about is, again, is a property owned. LRA would like to get involved and take those parcels over, construct new single-family homes, which I think is great initiative and idea if it goes through, and then it'll be like a lottery. Pretty much, all right. It could be a lottery given out to veterans that are in need of shelter. So I mean, there's the specifics and particulars
Yeah.
really needs to be worked out. But that's just me saying, well, if they built this, what would be the best course of action? Well, I think a lottery system and to the most needy, right, and then go out. But talk to us about that.
Well, this would be for families,
Families.
first of all. And yeah, it would be sort of a lottery basis to choose and to select. And, that process is a whole separate thing. I'm looking at it from my experience working with architects and land planners. At the present, it's one single parcel of land. And I'm suggesting 15 lots. As it is right now, if you went to build there without doing anything to the site, you might get 4 to 6 units on the site. Is all you
that's
could
still
get.
good.
But I want to go bigger. Now, someone will say, oh, but then you have to spend money on a road. Well, I say, yeah, well, okay. So with 15 lots,
Yeah.
at $20,000 per lot at the closing, you'd probably have enough money
To pave that road.
to pave that road.
Sure.
So how do you get the money to pave the road up front in order to make the lots buildable? That's where you go out and you sell bonds for that. And as the money comes
Gotcha.
in,
So that's what you were talking about, the issuing
Yeah.
of the bonds.
yeah, so the
Gotcha.
issuing of the bonds would be, and in that particular project, there's a wetland area. So how that's treated is differently than
Sure,
no,
than just regular land.
And what I'm suggesting is that a retention pond can be built there. That wetland that's existing there now is actually at a higher elevation than a lower wetland which it runs into. And the
Which would be good.
the lower
be good.
wetland has a stream that runs out of it under 495 through some culvert or something that's there, crosses through the Andover Country Club, goes into Hussey Brook. There's a confluence
Yeah.
somewhere. And then that Hussey Pond, which is off of Poor Street, which was always stocked with fish and that. So I'm thinking, we could maybe even get together with Andover and
And do some type of collaboration
yeah,
for
to do
veterans.
it, yeah,
Would it just
do it
would this
together.
be specific for veterans though? The idea?
That's what I'm proposing because the need
It's great.
is very great. Now,
Yeah, it's grand need.
Now-
Right now, we just filled up our apartments, and we just filled them up.
Yeah.
And our next step now is we're calling around to widowers or veterans that are homeowners that are willing to rent us out an apartment.
Yeah.
That's where we're at right now. But if this stuff, would actually, come to
Yeah.
fruition, then it'd make a big difference.
Now, if you go out to just buy a house on the market, part of the price of the house is the land,
Right.
Okay, and then there's all the labor, and then there's the markup, which is big.
Sure.
So that developers might go out there and they build a house and they sell it for $300,000, and actually $150,000 of
Profit.
it is profit,
Yeah.
and nobody realizes how
Sure.
much it is.
I'm a contractor,
So you see, and they have to do that because there's times when
just
they don't
business.
make any money at
Yeah,
all.
It's business, unfortunately.
And
that's the way it is.
they also have to jump through all kinds of hoops to get approvals.
Yeah, permits and the architects and designs have to be approved and all that other stuff.
And
There's
So they
a
put
lot of
money.
work.
So what happens is they put money into projects that don't make any money, and they even lose money on some things. So they have to make it when they can make it. But nevertheless, if you can get, what I foresee happening is that veterans.
Yeah,
with
tell us a little bit because I
veterans
think we're
with-
running really
okay,
out of time, I believe.
Veterans with families could maybe have a $100,000 mortgage on a $300,000 home. So they put their sweat equity into it, and they're
Sure.
sitting very well.
Sure.
There's other proposals that I have for the veterans in needs that are singles.
You
and
have,
that-
yeah, you've mentioned one proposal that was intriguing to me was not just the single family homes that obviously you're going to propose or you have proposed.
Yes.
But you also were talking about a high-rise building here, and I believe in by the Veterans Park, I think, North Parish Road,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
of building a high-rise specifically to house veterans. But of course, there's going to, I believe, if I'm mistaken, there'll be civilians and veterans, I think, mixed
Well,
there.
no,
but
this.
but in the bottom, if you're not
Yeah.
mistaken, I apologize for cutting you off. In the bottom would be services that we could provide, like NEVLH could go put their office in there, provide medical attention, provide AA, NA, a workout room, food pantry, kitchen. So tell us a little bit about that idea that you came to us.
That particular site, and I have to speak with someone from the Housing Authority, and they're willing to talk with me. There are others that are interested in the site too, like the Bread and Roses
Yeah, sure. There's a
housing
lot of, I'm sure.
organization and that.
And they
I-
got deep pockets, man. We don't.
It's a piece of land that is owned by the Lawrence Housing Authority. There's another small parcel that I want to add in with it that's owned by O'Reilly Auto Parts and put them together. Now that one I'm hoping to get donated, okay, as land, because they don't use it for their business in any way. And people are dumping on the property and that.
Yeah,
So
and
it-
it's going to cost us
yeah.
anything to keep it up.
Now, at one end of the site, there's a commercial building, and I've talked with the owner of the commercial property, and he's very agreeable to work with us on this.
And specifically for
There's a-
veterans?
Yes, there's a hillside there, and to build into the hillside, we could have 3 levels of parking before the building with the apartments appear.
You start building things.
Yeah.
Wow.
So where they start to appear would be near to the top of the hill.
Sure.
So then we could put a 9-story structure I'm proposing. Now
9 stories.
I have to go.
Man, you could look. You could see all the way from here to Boston.
Well, almost.
Almost.
No,
Okay.
you need about 30 stories to see the Boston.
Come on, just do something.
Yeah, but anyway, and so then I have to find out from the fire department what their equipment
What
and
the
all
killers and
that.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, what
If
we
they-
have
If
present.
they have the capabilities.
Yeah. So, but from there, what I'm envisioning is that you'd have all these single units in that building.
Single
but
units referring to like 1 bedroom, studios.
1 bedroom. I'd prefer 1 bedroom rather than studios because I believe that
Sure.
it's better for the dignity of the
I
veteran.
do too. I'm with
to
you. I'm
have-
100% with you. I believe
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
single room occupancy these days is just not the way to go.
No.
When you're trying to reacclimate someone back into society, like us ourselves, we have this transitional home, but that's just it. That's transitional. We want to get them out of there and bring them into a 1-bedroom apartment where they could go and have the liberty of cooking their own meal and cooking everything they need to do. So, tell us 1 minute. We have 1 minute. What it is exactly that you want from that area?
Okay, so I want a mixed use, and the front would be commercial, owned by the present owner, and possibly even the back would be of this building. It may be 100, 120 feet, all the way across the lot, okay? And then you'd have the facilities floor, which
Ground level?
Yeah, which your organization could possibly run the services on, and have a place where there's a clinic there where doctors can come in and that, and then the single units would be above for single persons, and then connected with it, the next building down would be not as tall. It would be stepping down a few stories, and that would be apartments for elderly veterans. And they'd have a walkway across into the services.
Families, any
Yeah.
families?
And then behind that would be all single family
Family
homes,
homes.
which could possibly be all townhouses, and that
Wow.
would, Habitat, I want to do that.
Man, James, from
know,
your mouth
so,
to God's ears, I
yeah.
really, really do hope that this goes through for you, and whatever you need for NVLH to do
Yeah.
to help you on this. Again, I hope
Well,
really, really happens.
The need is great. Now, stepping off as the first step with the redevelopment authority,
Yeah.
the veterans were the first people that I thought of, and
Awesome.
and
Well, thank you. Listen, I'm sorry we're running out of time,
Yeah.
but thank you for being here. It was a pleasure having you here, and I'm sure we'll be talking some more in our office about this great plan that you have. And for all you that are watching out there, please don't forget, again, if you have anybody that's returning back from deployment, contact either your local veteran service officer or contact our office at 978-258-2331. Thank you for watching. Again, be kind to one another, and we'll see you next time.